Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're diving straight into what's been happening in Bangladesh. Some really dramatic events recently, especially Sheikh Hasina leaving power.
Yeah, it's quite the story.
We want to look at how this leader, once praised internationally, became someone so, condemned inside her own country. It led to this massive uprising. Our main source here is the Al Jazeera English documentary, The Mother and the Monster, After Sheikh Hasina, What's Next for Bangladesh. We'll be using clips and insights from that.
Right.
And our mission really is to figure out what caused this huge shift and maybe get a sense of what's next for Bangladesh.
It's a huge question. And you look back at Sheikh Hasina's initial image, it's quite striking. Longest serving female leader globally, right? Credited with lifting millions from poverty.
Yeah, they even called her the mother of humanity at one point.
Exactly. And, daughter of the founding president, Mujibur Rahman, her family's tragic history, murdered in that 75 coup while she was away.
Yeah.
She comes back from exile in India, fights for democracy, becomes PM in 96. It was seen as this big democratic moment.
But as the documentary really hammers home, that image just crumbled. Many Bangladeshis started seeing her totally differently, calling her a monster, a psychopath, even a zombie. Stark language.
It really is. And the allegations are, staggering. Scaling billions, security forces, kidnapping, and executing thousands.
Thousands. It culminated, didn't it, in those student protests? July 2024. That seemed to be the final straw before she fled to India.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dig into that, the turning point. What really drove this massive change in how people saw her?
Well, the documentary brings up an interesting perspective from Sarah Hussein, a human rights lawyer. She suggests the trauma, the assassination of her family, might have profoundly shaped her leadership.
How so?
The idea is maybe it led her to see any opposition, any dissent, as betrayal, like the people who killed her family.
That's quite a psychological angle. It sort of puts the alleged authoritarianism in a different light, though it doesn't excuse it, obviously.
No, not at all. And that suppression of dissent is a key theme. The documentary highlights cases like Sajidul Islam Sumin.
He was with the BNP, the main opposition party.
That's right. Disappeared back in December 2013. Him and 5 friends. Witnesses apparently saw authorities just take them.
And his family.
Heartbreaking. His sister's testimony, his mother searching for years, getting nowhere. It really paints a picture of the fear people lived under.
It sounds like his case wasn't isolated either. This became a pattern.
Sadly, yes. That's where Sanjid Islam Tool comes in. She and her mother started this group, Maya Duck.
Maya Duck.
Yeah, to document the missing. It grew incredibly to over 1,000 families, all searching.
1,000, just searching for loved ones who vanished.
The uncertainty, the pain, it's hard to grasp. And then you have cases like Humam Kadir Chowdhury.
His father was an opposition leader too, wasn't he? Hanged in 2015.
Yes, and then Humam himself was abducted, held in isolation. It shows this pattern hitting families connected to the opposition.
And this leads us to something truly chilling mentioned in the documentary, The House of Mirrors. What exactly was that?
It sounds like something out of a nightmare. Reportedly run by the DGFI.
That's the Defense Intelligence Agency, reporting to the PM's office.
Directly. And this House of Mirrors was allegedly a secret detention center. Its purpose? To make people disappear, essentially.
Disappear how?
The account from Brigadier General Abdullah Hil Amin-Azmi is just harrowing. A decorated officer, mind you, held there for 8 years. 8 years without charge after being dismissed and jailed.
8 years.
And the conditions. Yeah. Sensory deprivation, constant psychological torment, physical abuse. He said he didn't see natural light for, nearly 70,000 hours.
Unbelievable. 70,000 hours.
Handcuffed, blindfolded, masked, kept in darkness. It sounds like a system designed specifically to break people, to erase their identity.
Just horrific. And it connects to another key player, doesn't it? The Rapid Action Battalion, RAP.
Right.
Initially formed, I think, with US and UK help for counterterrorism.
That was the idea, counterterrorism. But it's made up of police and military personnel, and over time, its roles seem to shift dramatically. Many sources, including the documentary, allege became more like a death squad.
The death squad, used against who?
Primarily against political opposition, crushing dissent, especially targeting the BNP.
Is there evidence of this? Specific cases?
The documentary mentions Rajan Bapari, a lawyer, apparently kidnapped, tortured.
Why him?
He published a book critical of a government trial. After the alleged torture, he was apparently paraded at a Rabi press conference. a clear warning, it seems.
That's incredibly brazen. And what about the international backers, the US and UK?
Well, the U.S. did eventually sanction RIB in 2021.
Okay.
But disturbingly, the documentary notes that the UK and the Netherlands reportedly continued providing support even after that.
Really? Despite the sanctions in the reports.
Apparently so. And then there was a commission of inquiry, which even in its interim findings, directly linked RIB to kidnappings and even accused Sheikh Hasina herself of being involved.
Wow. So, direct accusations against the prime minister. That raises serious questions about that international support, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Prioritizing counterterrorism versus human rights and democracy. It's a difficult balance, but the evidence here seems pretty damning.
Okay, so we have this backdrop. Alleged authoritarianism, disappearances, RB's actions. What finally lit the fuse for the big uprising? It wasn't just one thing, you said.
No, it had been building. But the spark, the real catalyst, seems to have been the student protests in June 2024.
What were they protesting about initially?
It started with a government quota system for civil service jobs. A large chunk was reserved for the grandchildren of independence fighters.
And in a tough job market.
Exactly. The younger generation, this Gen Z, as the documentary calls them, saw it as blatant discrimination. Unfair favoritism.
And those protests grew.
Very quickly, they started demanding an end to broader discrimination, protesting the regime's heavy-handedness in general.
And the response?
Violent. Allegedly attacks by the Awami League student wing, police shootings, leading to that horrifying discovery of a mass grave in the main cemetery.
A mass grave. That must have just inflamed everything.
Absolutely. But then something unexpected happened with the army.
Right, the chief of staff, General Wakaru Saman. He was appointed by Hasina, wasn't he? Even related somehow.
Yes, appointed by her. Familial ties. But he reportedly refused orders to fire on the protesters.
Why? What did he say?
In the documentary, he basically says, shooting civilians isn't their way, it's against their culture. He wanted a peaceful transition. That decision seems to have been absolutely crucial.
Because the regime couldn't rely on the army to crush the protests.
Precisely. Without that military backing, the regime, which seemed so strong, just collapsed incredibly quickly.
And then the students stormed the presidential palace.
A powerful symbol, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right after the news broke that Sheikh Hasina had fled to India. The power of the people, right there.
So Hasina's gone. What happens next? An interim government.
Yes, and the choice of leader was interesting. They asked Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus.
Yunus, the microfinance pioneer. Not really a politician.
Exactly. And apparently he was reluctant at first. He's a humanitarian figure, not a political operator. Plus, he'd faced persecution under Hasina himself.
So why did he agree?
The students. They urged him, apparently feeling he was the only one with the stature and integrity to lead during this crisis. His acceptance, given everything, really shows how serious things were.
But taking over now, the challenges must be enormous.
Monumental. Bureaucracy pushing back the sheer scale of the alleged corruption.
What was that figure? $16 billion stolen annually.
That's the estimate mentioned, and foreign reserves were plummeting. It's a massive economic hole to climb out of.
So they're investigating the corruption now.
They are. Figures like the former land minister Zaman Chowdhury, with his huge London property portfolio, he's become a sort of symbol of that alleged plunder. Trying to get those assets back is going to be a long, complex fight.
And wasn't there that controversy involving Sheikh Hasina's niece, Tulip Siddiq, in the UK?
Yes. That raised a lot of eyebrows. She had a role in the UK government, overseeing illicit finance, I believe.
Right, while her family back in Bangladesh was facing these massive corruption allegations, a huge potential conflict of interest.
Definitely awkward, to say the least. And she did resign from that UK role eventually, didn't she? As the investigations in Bangladesh ramped up, the pressure must have been immense.
Okay, besides corruption, what about the human rights abuses? Addressing the past? The disappearances, the House of Mirrors?
Another huge challenge. The interim government says they're investigating. They promise accountability. But, people are concerned. How fast will justice move? And RIB, the Rapid Action Battalion, it's still operating.
Still, after all the allegations.
Apparently so. Reforming institutions like that, which are accused of such deep-seated abuses, is incredibly difficult. You hear from people like Sanjida Islam Tool, still searching, still uncertain. It shows how far there is to go for real justice.
And the human costs of the uprising itself. The injured protesters.
Tragic. The numbers are shocking. One military hospital treated over 2,600 people.
2,600 in one hospital.
And children, too, like that 10-year-old boy, Imran, shot in the head. The long-term impact on people, on the healthcare system,
Yeah.
It's devastating.
Let's shift focus slightly. India's role. They gave Sheikh Hasina refuge, and they supported her for years. What's the thinking there?
Well, regionally, India often saw Hasina as important for stability. A counterweight to Pakistan, someone tough on Islamic hardliners. That was the narrative anyway.
A narrative Hasina herself promoted, right?
Absolutely. It likely played a big part in India's long-term support. But now she's gone, and India faces uncertainty. Worries about instability, maybe religious tensions flaring up.
The documentary mentioned some attacks on Hindus after Hasina left.
It did, but it also suggested these might have been more politically targeted, aimed at people seen as supporting the old regime, rather than a widespread, systematic attack on the Hindu minority itself. It's complex.
And adds to the political tangle. You've got debates about secularism in the Constitution, the BNP pushing for quick elections.
Right, while Muhammad Yunus seems to want to build some consensus on democratic basics before rushing into elections.
Yeah.
Trying to avoid repeating past mistakes, perhaps?
Are new political groups emerging from all this?
Yes. Nahid Islam, one of the student leaders, resigned from the interim setup to form his own party. Student-backed.
Interesting. A new force.
And even Sheikh Hasina from India called for a new beginning for Bangladesh.
How did that go down?
Predictably, not well with many back home. Her family home was reportedly torched in response. Shows the anger is still raw.
So, wrapping this up, this deep dive shows a really complex, profound shift in Bangladesh. The fall of a leader accused of terrible things, this powerful student movement demanding change. But the path forward looks incredibly rocky.
Absolutely. The challenges are immense. Reforming institutions, dealing with past abuses, navigating regional pressures, building political agreement. It's a monumental task for the interim government.
Which leads to that big lingering question, doesn't it? Can this new Bangladesh they talk about really break free? Break free from these cycles of authoritarianism, corruption, things that seem so deeply embedded.
Especially with powerful players involved, both inside and outside the country. Can they really dismantle those structures? Or will history just sort of repeat itself in a new way? International attention, or lack of it, will be key, I think.
It's a really crucial point, and maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. What is the role of international actors here? Countries like the US, the UK, given their past dealings with Arabi, what's their responsibility now? To support human rights, real democracy. What lessons can we take from this about balancing security concerns with democratic values abroad?
It's a web of tough questions. And Bangladesh's future really does seem to be hanging in the balance right now.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.